Today we are catching up with a lady who is getting ready to jump out of a plane, but she's doing it for a really good reason, and we're going to find out why. Hi Tamara, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Now, the reason you're jumping out of the plane is not an uncommon one. It's something that a lot of expecting mums and new mums suffer from. Can you tell us a little bit about your pregnancy and parenting journey?
Sure. I couldn't wait to fall pregnant once we'd made the decision to start trying, and I naively believed that I would be this glowing, happy, beaming with excitement woman about my pending arrival. And I was that way for a very short time before being hit with incredible morning sickness, which essentially lasted throughout my entire pregnancy. Made me pretty miserable and didn't sleep well, had to sleep in separate rooms from my husband. It was just not a very pleasant experience. So I thought it would all get better once my son arrived, but that wasn't to be. We had quite a traumatic birth, which took its toll on me, and he got quite sick a couple of days later and we almost lost him. He went into special care. We had to be separated. He took a long time to get back to birth weight. We had breastfeeding issues, just all mounted up to me not being in a very good place mentally and just really struggling to cope with it all.
And a lot of first-time mums don't necessarily know the signs. So, being extremely tired, suffering from the baby blues, we can kind of wonder whether what we're going through is normal or not. So what were some of the signs for you that now that you look back on and obviously have the knowledge, what were some of the signs for you that you were suffering from postnatal depression?
I cried a lot, and initially I put it down to baby blues, hormones, it's normal. But looking back now, I can see how excessive it was. I panicked about my son being in any kind of danger. I worried about everything. I literally couldn't sleep because I'd be thinking of all the ways that he could be harmed, and I would have to protect him from all of those things, which I, again, now understand is all part of it. I had horrible visions of things happening to him, and that made me feel like I was somehow wanting him to be hurt, and I felt like, what kind of monster am I that I think about these things? But now I know, going through therapy, that that's actually really common, and most people feel embarrassed when they're going through it, that, think of these things, and that's why it's so hard to admit and come forward and say, I think something's wrong.
Because there's that fear there too of your baby being taken away from you, isn't there?
Yes, absolutely. And that's what I thought, that if I told anyone what was going through my head, that someone would take my baby away.
And was it hard for your partner to reach out and support you, or to see you going through this? How was he through the process of you going through postnatal depression and not really realising that that's what you had?
It was really hard for him. My husband is not a talker, particularly about feelings. So he was doing his best to support me in terms of, giving me time to have naps, making all the meals, prepping food ahead of time so that in the mornings I would have breakfast kind of there to pick up and eat. He was trying really hard to support me as best he could, but he couldn't understand what was going on in my head. And I guess we were losing touch with each other because he no longer understood me as a person, because I essentially was just unravelling and he didn't know what to do either. So it wasn't until I spoke to my GP just during a routine visit about, just how heavy everything felt, and that she helped to kind of untangle it and refer me to a psychologist. And then from there, once I knew what was happening with me, I could to him about it, and then he could read up online of what things meant, and then he found other ways to support me.
And how old was your son when you had that visit to the GP where she started to unravel things and help you, and you realised that what you were going through was normal? How old was he?
He was probably around 6 months old, so it had been happening from the very beginning for all that time. So it was quite a long thing to live with.
Yeah, which is actually, it's not uncommon. So some mums their child can be 12 months or 18 months old before they seek help, because 3 out of 4 mums don't seek help until everything really is quite out of control, and that's what the research shows. So it's not uncommon for your child to be 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. After you did have that visit with the doctor where she started to unravel things for you and you started to see a psychologist, how long was it afterwards before you started to feel a little bit like yourself again, before you noticed that the anxiety and the worry and I guess the cloud started to dissipate?
It probably wasn't for another 6 months. Like, I did a lot of work in that time. I was seeing a therapist. I was trying to be more open and honest with my partner and my family about what I needed in terms of support. But I found also just the isolation of motherhood and being on maternity leave really didn't help matters either. So it probably wasn't until I guess I went back to work and started getting some real time to myself that I started to that cloud started to lift.
And like we said, there's a lot of mums and families, partners, families that are watching on that are suffering because they're not quite sure what to do. And there is that absolute fear of speaking up, and I guess almost a shame that you're feeling this way when the vision of motherhood is so rosy beforehand. So what advice do you have, not just for mums but also for partners and family who are looking on, who want to be able to do something to help? What advice do you have for them?
It can be as simple as picking up the phone and calling an organisation like Panda, and it's confidential and you can just call and ask for help. They have phone counselling, and when you explain what's going on for you, they will reassure you how common it is and how normal it is and where you can go for help, what you can do. You don't have to see anyone face to face. If you are feeling a bit ashamed or embarrassed, it can be as simple as a phone call.
Okay, and that is great advice for anyone who is listening. It can be as simple as a phone call. You don't have to go and see anyone. It can be as simple as picking up the phone. So you've gone full circle and now you're jumping out of a plane. Have you ever jumped out of a plane before?
I have just once, about 7 years ago. It's been quite some time.
Okay, and for those who are listening, Mother Jumpers marks the start of Perinatal Anxiety and Depression Week in Australia on November 11, and it is basically a chance for mums to jump out of planes and help raise or increase support and raise awareness for perinatal anxiety and depression. Are you looking forward to jumping?
I am. It's been a long time since I've done anything like this. So it excites me and terrifies me all at the same time. But I feel like I've fallen into a bit of a rut in terms of fun since becoming a mum. I guess baby becomes your total focus and you sort of forget about yourself sometimes. So I'm really excited just to do something for myself and also to try and help other people to not go through what I did.
And that's it, isn't it? It helps to generate awareness and let people know that they can call Panda or Cope and access services at their fingertips when they need it.
Exactly. And also Cope talk about expectant parents. So they kind of help them to manage their expectations of what's ahead of them. And I think that would have been so helpful to me to have had. So I think it's wonderful that they do that.
Yeah, I agree. We focus so much on the birth, don't we, that we don't realise the storm that's about to hit.
Particularly as a first-time parent, you have absolutely no foundation of knowledge of what's going to happen next.
And for people who are wanting to support you, where can they go? How can they help?
There is a My Cause website, and you can search Mother Jumpers, and that will list all of the people who have registered to jump. So you can select an account from there and make a donation.
All right, so anyone who's listening who wants to help, all the links are on our website at littlerockersradio.com.au. You can also visit COPE, which is cope.org.au. Best of luck with the jump, Tamara, and thanks so much for joining us today and sharing your story.
Thank you.
That was Tamara, who is a mother jumper, joining us on Little Rockers Radio. Thanks for listening.